Hello, welcome to Business Incorporated live on Channels Television. I'm Ladi Williams. Here's what's coming up in the next 55 minutes. And we analyze the impact of current macroeconomic headwinds on asset distribution for families. And Egypt's House of Representatives approved increasing Egypt's share in the International Monetary Fund by 50%. Plus, Somalia has to start development of a $70 million port in December. And it's another rainy afternoon right here in Lagos, Nigeria, but the markets are still open. The markets are still trading. Let's get a check on international commodities market now. See gold prices extended their decline for the fifth consecutive session today, under pressure from recent strong U.S. economic data. Though the safe haven demand coming from tensions in the Middle East, that limited most of the drop. That's talking about gold. That's for the metals market. Gold fell about 0.1% to $2,641 per ounce in early trade. And we see gold prices are up about 28% so far this year. Quite impressive, but under pressure since Friday's strong U.S. jobs report. That prompted markets to adjust estimates of the depth of the future U.S. rate cuts, and that's for the gold market there, with U.S. gold futures down 0.3%. Let's look at oil now. See, oil prices edged lower in early Asian trading hours today as traders booked profits after prices have rallied to their highest in over a month. That was on Monday. So I guess it's only normal that most of these investors will try to take profit. Brent there, trying to near that $80 level. It's $79.62, down by 1.6%. WTI, that's the U.S. grade, $75.85 cents a barrel. See the spread there, just about $3 to $4 for Brent and WTI at this time. We know the issues there in the Middle East. Iran backed Hezbollah. They're firing rockets at Israel's third largest city, Haifa, and Israel. They're looking poised to expand its offensive into Lebanon at this point. So we're just waiting to see. Hopefully, this doesn't escalate, but we're seeing the impact there already on global commodities that we track. All right, to other stories now. Definitely, we've seen a lot of issues when it comes to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are going through a lot right now with the cost of living crisis and demand destruction right before our eyes. So I guess we had earlier today on Business Morning, broke it down for us. How do we get more entrepreneurs backed in this present economic state? Take a listen.
The entrepreneur starts small and look at, monitor the journey and then follow it up. Now, what we're looking at now, what I'm kind of advising is that we look at our curriculum and tweak some things. There is almost outdated. It's over 30 years and we're still using it. But if you look at what is happening in other world, like the developing, like the EU, are encouraging their schools to bring in entrepreneurship in their curriculum. Even Rwanda here, they started implementing that in almost 10 years now, about 2012. So Nigeria, we don't have any excuse. We need to do something about it. The policymakers, on education, to think of how to bring in entrepreneurship. I can tell you that they are working on it because I have consulted to one or two, parastatals, and they are surely looking at it. Like UBEC is looking at it. They have what they call school to work. So I've met them and said, let's roll it out. But they are waiting for it to be perfect. But now when you bring entrepreneurship training around it, you roll immediately.
And it's still World Investor Week this week. And yesterday we covered the opening event. That was yesterday. And we see the SEC there in collaboration with most stakeholders in Nigeria's capital market there. Telling us how investors will stay protected in most of these markets. Take a listen.
Nigeria Security and Exchange Commission is joining its counterparts in the International Organization of Securities Commissions to celebrate World Investor Week 2024 with the theme Technology and Digital Finance, Crypto Assets and Sustainable Finance. The focus suggests new opportunities, but also new risks.
In Nigeria, the rapid adoption of mobile technology and digital payments demonstrates the immense potential for growth in digital finance. And it is starting, and we think it's a revolution that will continue. As we embrace these innovations, SEC therefore assures the capital market, or wish to assure the capital market, that we will work assiduously with other regulators within Nigeria to adopt frameworks that will protect investors. Our desire is to ensure that technological advances are deployed responsibly and that the market participants understand the risks associated with digital finance, such as cybersecurity threats and data privacy issues.
Regulators, stakeholders, and the government would have to build a structure to accommodate the new products and risks.
As these themes evolve, digitization, asset tokenization, crypto, DeFi, decentralized finance, ESG securities, as these products and the interest for these from investors evolve, capital markets operators must stay at the forefront of innovating and developing products that are properly structured with investor protection in mind to deliver access to these investments in the capital markets.
There's a lot of acceptance and encouragement from the Lagos State government.
Our state has always embraced forward-thinking solutions to foster economic growth, drive financial inclusion, and create wealth. If there's anywhere to explore new ideas, to experiment, then Lagos will be that place.
As part of this year's celebration, the Securities and Exchange Commission has promised to conduct investor clinics in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt for the period of the celebration.
Well, so as Nigeria evolves and faces new socioeconomic challenges, we've seen the likes of inflation, currency devaluation, and employment, have become increasingly crucial now for individuals to rethink their approach to estate planning. So the question is, how do you leave something behind for your family when we have macroeconomic headwinds taking away what you have? Currently, we're also seeing the issues around dormant accounts in Nigeria. But joining me for this conversation, we have Mr. Michael Abiodun Thomas. He's MD CEO, United Capital Trustees Limited, joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Ladi.
Yeah, it's definitely a rainy day in Lagos right now. It's raining cats and dogs out there. I wonder if it's calmed down. But, definitely, when it comes to leaving something behind, as a breadwinner for your family, there are a lot of issues now eating up what you currently have. We also have the issue when it comes to dormant accounts. In Nigeria, you've seen some of those monies there might be borrowed, for development and all of that. How are you seeing all of this play out when it comes to asset distribution?
Yeah, thank you, Ladi. I think, again, this is a recurring incident or situation where people find themselves, and this happens within families, within businesses, within partnership, and many other places you wouldn't even expect. And it means, again, that people have worked very hard to grow their assets, to have an asset base, and now they need to also be intentional about how those assets are being distributed. And again, what happens is that from families and sometimes, again, from siblings and many other things which you have like that, when people are not intentional, and the statistics are very baffling in terms of the number of people who do not make adequate plans for their assets and liability. And because a lot happen in the world where we live in today, health issues, demise eventually, and you leave behind a trail of family scrabbles and battles and litigations and uncertainty. And so the need to make intentional, your assets and your liability is paramount for every one individual, whoever that person is, whether you're a high net worth individual, small scale business owner, a nuclear family, an extended family, whatever the case is, talk to a professional, talk to an expert, and get your estate in order. Recently, the CBN guideline, which you mentioned, threw into FOIA this long age issue of what is the difference between a next of kin and a beneficiary. Right? There are certain laws that are already in place, like the estate administrative laws of Lagos State, that state that no one can take anything that belongs to you, except as clearly specified by you. Now, the CBN guideline says that all dormant accounts, 10 years and above, can now be assessed by the next of kin. Your next of kin is anyone who can be easily contacted in the event of anything that goes wrong, maybe at your place of work and business line or so. But your beneficiaries are your dependents who you desire your asset to go to. Now, if you leave your estate unplanned, the asset which you have worked very hard for, the law says that a next of kin can walk up and take it over. And I think this is not clearly the intention of many people. So except we get very intentional about it, we'll continue to see a lot of uncertainty, a lot of disputes and unnecessary battles, if you ask me.
Right, and talking about disputes, we've seen some families still battling 10 years after for what was left behind by the breadwinner. So at this point we're seeing these guidelines from the CBN, we're seeing other guidelines and laws guiding all of this. But how clear do you think this can be made so that we don't have most of these days, because it's quite sad seeing a brother and sister fighting over property.
Yeah, so a very good one. And again, Ladi, as the case would be, is that we tell people that, the life cycle of people. You grow up, you get work, you start a business, you grow assets. Make out time to plan for your dependents and your words, which could be your spouse, your children, whoever depends on you, right? Determine who owns your business, your small startup, that patent you have, that copyright you have, who owns it. There's ownership to all of those things. And your asset is everything from physical to intangibles, from stocks to, equity, whatever it is, make that plans like that. Because when a person makes a testamentary plan, take for instance, you leave a will or a trust behind, you become very clear and very intentional. You make it easy for yourself, your dependents, and even the law to administer those assets and distribute it accordingly. But when a person doesn't leave behind any form of estate plan, e.g. a trust or a will, you leave everything open to disputes, family scrabbling. Sometimes some minors, don't benefit from it. We have people thrown out of homes, kids not being able to go to school anymore, and some creditors even taking over assets that should not have been within their possession. So it leaves a lot of uncertainty, and siblings even get to a point where you're going to court, it leads to a lot of disputes. Businesses die in the middle of all of this dispute. And the statistics speaks to it at a very alarming rate. So absolutely, way to go, be intentional, take actions now, don't procrastinate, and make it worth the while.
Right, I guess it's one thing actually having something, to leave behind. And we're seeing a lot of macroeconomic headwinds now, impacting everyone, at this point. How do you see, estate, even having some kind of estate being left behind, in times of, economic quagmire? How does that work? Is there a negative impact on, what people leave behind when you have all of the inflation and currency devaluation eating into your current assets?
Yes. So again, the good thing about estate planning, and oftentimes, and this is a very valid question, people ask and say, oh, I don't have much, why should I plan an estate? This is strictly for HNIs or ultra HNIs, high net worth individuals who have a lot of disposition funds. But do you have an RSA will, right? Do you have a pension, account? Do you have some stock? Do you have an account? Do you have a bank account? Then you should have an estate plan, because it is a flexible plan that allows you to grow over the years, and you can keep making amendments. A will itself is not cast in law. There are codicils that allow for amendment. But once you put your estate together, it does a mental thing to you. It gives you an oversight of all what you have and helps you determine how you can grow, hedge your risk, and increase in the face of financial difficulty. Indeed, the macroeconomic outlook is becoming very challenging for anyone. So if you have assets that are distributed that you're not sweating or making anything out of, this is the time under this sort of hardship to look into it, pay attention to it, so that you can always hedge against the economy until things again, get better, which I don't know what. Because
I can imagine, leaving some money, to your dependents. And
absolutely.
When you left it, maybe at the exchange rate was still quite strong. Then when you go and they now try to access the funds, inflation and currency devaluation is eating all of that up. So you have to find the right, investments to actually pass on, at this point.
And the good thing about when perhaps a trustees manage your estate is the fact that no funds or assets is left dormant. Whatever needs to be invested. I will tell you again, for some of the perhaps siblings, rivalry, family dispute and all the rest, because they are court litigations, all of the assets are left the way they are. Nothing is done. 10 years, 20 years, and even more oftentimes. The question is that the value of certain, funds in the account or whatever it is, within this period of time could have depreciated. If it was in the hands of a trustee, it could have been invested, it could have been sweated. The most of it, it could have been made the most out of, and again, I agree to that point.
All right, so let's look at the cost of, managing your estate. How expensive is it, or maybe not so expensive? Because, we've heard people say, I don't have anything, to leave behind. So if I'm trying to get, this planning done, it might even cost me what I have now. So what's the cost of, getting these plans?
No. So again, there is no one, there's no two estate plan that's the same, right? Because you have your own peculiarities, your assets and other things like that. And so that means that there is something for the mass affluents, there is something for, HNIs, there's also the retail part of it, right, which a lot of technological leverage is being used to help this leverage. Like you can come on board, start something. We tell people, even if what you have is a single asset trust, start with a single asset trust. Very affordable. The entry point is quite easy. Speak to a professional. A first line of discussion could put you into place. And again, we tell people that let it grow with your assets. The fee grows with the assets. Right? Any service that would deplete generally what you have and doesn't increase it is really not a service. Because at the end of the day, you're less for it than more for it by going into that service. So very cost efficient, very affordable, and please talk to a professional.
Right. And, give me an overview. Are Nigerians really leaving those wheels behind? Have you seen any improvement, so far, in that segment?
Yes, so surprisingly, we're not getting so much. And again, you'll be quite surprised that, so this is it now. Estate planning, like any other financial service, right, runs on the back of the financial literacy of a particular society. So that means that our knowledge, our exposure and enlightenment of a certain aspect has a direct proportion to the financial literacy which we have. So how many people are even banked? What are the bankable population of Nigeria? How many people have a formal education and could understand that? Number two also is that where is the awareness, the knowledge, right? A lot of people stumble, I don't know about this. Why didn't anyone tell me? So even among the educated lots within the population, we've seen a lot of situations whereby people who are learned, who are schooled, right, are not leaving any will behind. The statistics is staggering. And how do you know that? Somebody passes on and then there's no probate. Nobody goes to court to read any will. Everybody sits down, there are family meetings, people go lock up houses, and they say, oh, we thought this person is very educated. We thought he's a prof. We thought he knew this. Again, alertness and awareness helps this process. Number two is also procrastination. A lot of people believe I will do it tomorrow, I will do it some other time. I was saying that, look, if you have the pendant and you really truly love them and care about them, this is your opportunity to get up and do something now. Number two also is that if you also have this time, you don't have the luxury of time to put this together. Some of the estate plan is not ambulatory, which means it's taking effect after death. It is also valuable now. While you're on seats, is valuable while you're alive. It makes life easier for you. You have an estate that literally takes care of itself. For tax benefit, it is perfectly awesome. It helps you to get a headway into tax, manage things, and use other instruments like gifting to save your dependents the trouble of cost of transfer of certain assets to them.
Yeah. Right, quite interesting, and definitely we hope more people, as you get older, you make plans, for the next segment. So thank you so much. It was great having you, Michael Abiodun Thomas, MD CEO, United Capital Trustees Limited.
Thank you
so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll find out some of these asset classes. Where can you make money? That's next. Just stay with us. All right, let's get a check on how your money is performing at intraday major markets that we track. We have in here again with the details. Another rainy afternoon.
Not rainy, but green afternoon.
Rainy and green, just like yesterday.
Yeah, just like it. No, it wasn't rainy yesterday. This time yesterday.
It felt like it rained.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe but it felt like I did feel some rain hit me yesterday.
Okay.
On the way in here.
Yeah. Well, more importantly is that the NGX is in the green.
Right.
And it's climbing. Even though we still have some points, a lot of points away from 98.
A few points to 98,000.
Is this few? You call this few? I don't think this is
200 and something.
It take a lot of deals.
Or 100 and something.
Somebody told me that we should forget about the 100 for now. If we do 99, that would be good luck for us. But for now, let's just stick to what we have.
So I guess 99 is a new resistance at this point.
Yeah, sadly. I was hoping at least to be 100.
Right.
Anyways, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the market segment of Business Incorporated. And of course, we're starting from home where we look at the NGX and see how it's doing. We see that we're climbing closer to the 98,000 level, which we lost last week. Hopefully, we can get that back at the close of trade today. Hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed. We saw yesterday that the oil and gas counter is booming. Back to that again with the two majors, Oando and Seplat, driving that. MTN Nigeria came out of nowhere, and then we saw it move the market. Meanwhile, Airtel continues its buyback of its shares, and we wonder when that will end. But let's talk to Dr. Peter Abe now, who is a stockbroker with IBTC Stockbrokers, to tell us what's going on, perhaps on the floor of the exchange at this time. Dr. Abe, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So what's going on at this time? We see the movement. We hope it is sustained. But who are those driving this positive sentiment at this time?
All right. So, good that the market gained yesterday, but today so far, all share index has lost 12 basis points. That means some names are seeing some sell-off. I'll call them bearish sentiments in the likes of banking names, consumer, and also oil and gas. So that's how market is trading at the moment. Just some bearish sentiments in the market at the moment.
You saw Dangote Sugar move yesterday. Investors' sentiments were positive on it. Do we see it along that line again today to drive the consumer goods counter?
So far now, I think from what I've seen on the board, Nigerian Berry has lost 5% at the moment to 28 naira. So I think from there, if we see that trend continue to close, we may likely see the market close on a negative territory.
Wow, that would be sad. We hope not, because I was hoping we would regain the 98,000 level. But what's going on with Airtel? It's like an unending buyback program that they've been doing. It's been months now.
So I remember they put out some notification to the market that they will be on this. And I think they've not reached the percentage or the amount they are looking to. So once they get that, I'm sure they will also let us know that they have reached the amount they are interested to. But it's not on the NGX, is on the London exchange. They are doing the buyback at the moment.
Oh, okay. Then the banks are quiet. Recapitalization is still on.
Well, outside sterling at the moment, I think the other names had concluded theirs, and we are waiting the results. GTCO, Zenith, Access Bank. So I think once we start seeing the results of the public offer and the rights, we may see some another round of maybe positive sentiments also coming into the bank. But at the moment, it's quite like you said. We expect possibly the Q3 numbers to also trigger activities in other banks as well.
Yeah, when do we expect that? Because I think that's the next big thing to move the market one way or the other. The Q3. About when can we expect that to start streaming in?
So by the rule of the NGX, after the Q3 ended September 30th, so all the corporates have 30 days after the end of the Q3 to release their numbers. So we'll start seeing them coming in, and that will last till the end of October.
Okay, then insurance is another interesting counter. We saw a pickup, but I mean, recently it's gone back to the background. What's going on there? The penny stocks, I think, mostly.
If I could remember, I think some of the names were actually suspended, and I think they've released their numbers now to the exchange. So that's created some few interest in insurance names. So outside that, it's quite also quite dead. And also there are also most of the numbers are in their close period, and investors are expecting their 9 month numbers. So we feel that will also help to trigger activities in these insurance names as well.
All right. So how do you see the market closing today? What color do we see at the close of trade?
Well, at the moment, all share index has lost 12 basis points. If we continue in this trend, I think we may close negative. But I mean, it's the market, so which means dynamics will always change, may change. So I just hope that it will change, and the prayer that you have to get to 98,000 points will also be accepted.
Yes, I think if we all pray for 98, we'll close at 98. But thank you so much, Dr. Peter Abbey, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I don't know if prayer does work in the market at this time, but we'll do our best and wait for the investors to react to that. Let's move from Nigeria now to in JSE, yeah, there you have it, Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We see intraday, it's very red, lost more than 1%, but still around 85,314.06. Let's go to other parts of the market now. In Africa, I believe we have Egypt. Egypt is also down, really red, at 1.77. That's a huge drop from that market at 1.77 intraday, 31,256.01. And in Nairobi, this is Monday's close, slightly down, not as bad as the others we see, but at least they've been sustaining the 100,000, above 100,000, which is why I was hoping that we'll be able to sustain 100,000. Theirs is 100, ours is 100,000 a level. That would have been nice. Let's just go to other parts of the world now. Looking at the markets, we see Middle East. The green market is what welcomes us today. Dubai is green, 0.52%, 4,418.05. Abu Dhabi, almost 1% in the green also, 9,231.23. Looking at other parts of that, Tadawar and Qatar are also green. Green market in the Middle East, some positive movement right there for them. Now let's go to other parts of the world. In the United States, we see that stock features are also green, unlike what we had yesterday. A lot of uncertainty and still the spillover of that huge jobs data that was released on Friday. That was what we saw yesterday, but seems that impact is waning off. So we see positive market today. This is the features. Obviously, in a couple of hours, the market will be open and then we'll see the real thing. 42,315 for the Dow Jones. S&P 0.35% at 5,765, while NASDAQ features has over 20,000 there at 0.38%. The after hours action came after those negative stocks. So we saw renewed sentiment right there. And rising bond yields also downward pressure on the market. Notably, the 10-year Treasury yield climbed about 4% yesterday to touch it higher. So some of the factors driving that market. Now, looking at Asia, we see we've lost that 39,000 that we had at this time yesterday, 38,937.54, just 1% in the red. And it's because the rally in Chinese market lost steam after briefing from the nation's National Development and Reform Commission provided a few details. Remember that big stimulus that drove the market last week? Well, more details are coming, and it seems the market is not very happy with some of those details that they're hearing. So that's why we see this red color for the Asian market. Kospi is also red, 0.61%. 2,594.36. The Hang Seng Index really down. We see, well, we saw the flip of this last week, So, but I mean, this is really down there, 9.41% down right there. Let's see other markets on this continent. Shanghai and India, Nifty, are able to escape that. Remember yesterday, Shanghai too was looking so good, some good numbers. I think about 8%. Today it's 4%. Are still in the green, are able to rig away the negative sentiment going on in the other markets. So, Ladi, I mean, seeing this big movement, remember the stimulus last week? The market was so happy, investors were happy, and we saw a lot of hopes and positive sentiment. But it seems with the details coming out now, it's not what investors were expecting. But I just wonder how Shanghai is able to...
Yeah, Shanghai keeps staying above water at this point. But it's interesting, with investors, they don't look at just what was said. They start to go deep into most of these statements.
I think they also listen to the rumors also.
Buy the rumor, sell the news, same old. But definitely, I know that investors now are looking out for Q3 reports. How are most of these listed companies, how do they perform in Q3? That will definitely push markets. And we'll see if the NGX get a boost from that. But thank you so much, Aini, for giving us details there. For most of those markets that we track. Let's get a check on Europe now. So economic activity doesn't appear to be picking up in Germany, Europe's industrial powerhouse. That's the latest factory orders data has put yet another dent into any hopes of a recovery. Joining us now is Chiponda Chimbelu from DW. Great to have you, Chip. So what are the latest figures?
Thanks for having me. Well, Ladi, factory orders in Germany tumbled in August, and they fell 5.8% from July, and that is the biggest decline since January. Now, while that drop comes after 2 consecutive months of a rise in factory orders, the latest data is still cause for concern. Anyone who's been following German economic news knows that the trend hasn't been positive, and the latest factory orders show that. A deeper look into the data also shows 2 very different stories for the Eurozone and outside it. While new orders from outside the Euro area rose by 3.4%, they tumbled within the Euro area, falling more than 10%. And that was the case also for domestic orders. So what that means is that whatever growth there is right now is coming from outside the Eurozone.
And how are German consumers responding to the economic woes?
Well, consumer sentiment is also increasingly a concern here in Germany. The HDE Consumer Barometer for October fell for the 4th month in a row, and it is now at its lowest level since April of this year. Germans are now increasingly saving money as some of them fear potential job losses. And some of Germany's biggest blue chip companies, software giant SAP and car maker Volkswagen, for instance, have already announced job cuts for this year. And the auto industry, one of the country's biggest employers, is shedding jobs as it struggles with the transition to electric vehicles and increasing competition from China. The number of workers among Germany's car makers is already down 7% compared to where it was 5 years ago. And in the last couple of days, German media have been reporting that the government is set to revise its economic forecast for this year to a contraction of 0.2% instead of the 0.3% growth that was previously forecast. Berlin reportedly expects the economy to return to growth next year. Post-pandemic, the German economy has struggled to gather steam, especially after the economic fallout from Russia's war in Ukraine, after which Germany, of course, had to look for alternatives to cheap Russian natural gas.
All right, now turning to the markets, what can we expect today?
Well, Ladi, European stocks are expected to trade lower today, and of course that comes after Chinese policymakers underwhelmed with their stimulus plans at a press conference. Now, that has dented hopes that the Chinese economy will be getting back on track anytime soon. And of course, fears of an escalating conflict in the Middle East remain, and there are worries about potential disruptions to oil supplies. And then, of course, when we look to economic data, the latest German industrial production figures released today show that in August, activity rose 2.9% on the month. But then, of course, investors will also be on the lookout for French and U.S. trade data today.
All right, so much data to look out for. Thank you so much, Chiponda, for giving us details from Europe. All right, let's get a check on all the news now with CD in Egypt. The House of Representatives have approved increasing Egypt's share in the International Monetary Fund by 50%. This came after the House approved a report for the Joint Committee of Planning and Budget and the Economic Affairs Committee on the decision of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi about 2024 regarding approving the increase in Egypt's share in the IMF. The head of the Planning and Budget Committee in the House of Reps said that this is the 16th time that the shares of member states in the IMF have been increased, and to increase its resources. So definitely we're seeing Egypt there planning to plug into that. And we also see that the National Telecom Regulatory Authority in Egypt has signed an agreement with the three leading telecom companies. That's Orange Egypt, Vodafone Egypt, and EN Egypt, granting them license for fifth-generation mobile services. The NTRA and Telecom Egypt also signed the specifications for launching 5G services. The agreement follows a $150 million similar agreement signed in January between NTRA and Telecom Egypt, reaching a total of $675 million for the four companies. That's according to a statement by the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology in Egypt. All right, let's take a look at some commodities right here. We see the National Emergency Management Agency has warned of severe flooding in several states in Nigeria. One of the cited states is Adamawa State, which accounts for about 18% of total domestic honey beans. That's Oloyin production. Consequently, the price jumped by 20% to 180,000 naira per bag. That's 50 kilogram bag in October from 150,000 in September. Join us now for more is Rosemary Adibe. She's an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Hello, Rosemary. Great to have you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So do we expect the price of, honey beans to climb further in the near term, or are there factors that could help, mitigate the impact of the anticipated shortage?
Yes, we do expect the price of honey beans to increase further in the near term. Although honey beans are being planted between May and August, we are well into the harvest season of honey beans. But due to recent flooding in the northeast, especially in Adamawa State, which is responsible for 80% of honeybean production in Nigeria, we've already lost about 2,076 hectares of farmland in Adamawa State. So we will not see the effect of the increase in harvests during this harvest season. Also, Nigeria imports about 16 billion worth of honeybeans annually to offset its deficit of about 500,000 tons of honeybeans. So obviously, the price of the dollar is affecting domestic prices of honeybeans. Also, we cannot forget the effects of the hike in transportation costs. So transportation inflation has greatly affected the domestic prices of beans. As we've seen in September, the price of petrol rose from 568 naira to about 855 naira to 897 naira, with some Nigerians even buying petrol for as high as 1,200 per litre. So all these factors collectively have contributed to the hike in the price of honey beans.
All right, and we know beans, that's honey beans, that's a crucial ingredient for production of akara and moi moi, that's bean cake. So I guess that's going to pass on the cost of akara at this point. We're having to pay more for that.
Yes, of course. So the increase in the price of honey beans have greatly affected the prices of downstream products like akara and moi moi. So what we see is a change in consumption patterns from consumers. So consumers are no longer looking for premiums; they are now looking for value for their money. So you see, price of honey beans increased from 1,800 to 2,200 naira per derica, and this has obviously increased the prices of akara and moi moi that retailers charge consumers, because they will usually pass down the increased cost of production to consumers. So what consumers do now is that they look for more value for their money, and they switch to cheaper alternatives like yam, which is coming into season, and potatoes. So yam, a good average size yam is between 1,200 to 2,000 naira. And to get a good amount of potatoes to serve a family, you can get that for 1,000 naira compared to a derica of beans, which you can get for 2,200 to 2,500 naira, depending on where you are buying it from.
Yeah, quite interesting times, and it's quite irritating when cheap food becomes expensive. But let's look at exports now. We see in 2015 the EU banned bean exports from Nigeria due to high level of weevils and pesticide residues. How's that looking? Have we seen any improvement, or maybe that ban might be reversed at some point?
The ban is still existing because according to the EU, Nigeria has not complied to the standards that the EU has set. So the World Bank estimates that Nigeria and other developing countries would lose about $12 billion by 2015 in export revenues from bans of not just beans, but other commodities that have been banned from developing countries. So this will affect Nigeria in the sense that these export revenues could have been used to increase output in the local bean markets and also to offset the deficits, the 500,000 ton deficit that we have. And there are things that Nigeria, the government, have been doing to kind of reduce this and to the reasons for the ban, to kind of mitigate the reasons for the ban. Sorry. So what they have been doing, the Nigerian Agricultural Quarantine Center have been going around and have been taking samples of honey beans from farmers, markets, and wholesale stores to test for pesticide residues. So the reason for the ban was because Nigeria's pesticide residues on dried beans was well over the permissible limit of 0.01 milligram per kilogram of honey bean. What they saw was 0.03 milligram of pesticide per kilogram. So sorry, 0.03 milligram to about 4.6 milligram per kg of pesticide in a kg of beans.
Right.
So the National Agricultural Quarantine Center have been going around to take samples to also check to make sure that, okay, the pesticide residue is within the permissible limits. Also, they've also made available samples of less toxic pesticides, which farmers can use. And they're also working with farmers in Kano, Oyo, and in Benue states to produce biodegradable agro pesticides. And also, the government is also urging farmers to use more natural methods to preserve beans, like the use of pepper and the use of seed dust, which are safer and more natural methods of storing beans.
Right. I guess we should also, make sure, even though we're trying to comply, to make sure that they accept our exports, we should also put that same energy for domestic consumption. So because we need those pesticides levels to actually, stay low, even for domestic consumption. Thank you so much, Rosemary Adibe, analyst, Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, to other stories now. We see Somalia to start development of a $70 million port, and that's in December. The Turkish company Meta Holding is constructing the facility, and Hobyo would be the closest seaport for the landlocked country, that's Ethiopia. Somalia's coastal town of Hobyo will see the start of construction of this new port in December, with the facility ready for use in about 3 years. Meta Holding, a Turkish company based in Ankara, will work with Hobyo Investment Company to build the harbor that will be about 435 miles northeast of the capital of Mogadishu. The firms have all allocated about $70 million for the first phase of the project. All right, let's get a check on the crypto market now. Let's get a sense of how it's trading. We know it's mostly red right there in the market. This time yesterday it was mostly green, but if we look at the screen now, we see it's mostly red on the screen. The opposite of what we had yesterday with Bitcoin giving up about 1.11% there. Big drop there. Ethereum also in the red, just a few pockets of green. With Phantom, looking quite good there with a market that's full of pullbacks right now. Let's look at the sentiment now. How are investors feeling? How are the traders feeling? If you look at the fear greed index, that gives a sense. Neutral. So it was 50 at this time yesterday, but now it's 49 points, showing that traders are still trying to gauge the market. They're not bullish, they're not bearish, just smack in the middle there. So let's look at the top cryptocurrencies now that we track. We see the likes of Bitcoin there, 1.11% pullback. At 1.42% for Cardano, that's ADAS, maintained this level for the longest time. XRP still acting like a stable coin at this point at 52 cents, 1.16% down. BNB also $571. Let's look at the top stories in the market. Now we see the total crypto market cap that's plunged by about 3.5%. And that's according to data from CoinGecko. So when you see that market cap going down, you know it's a big issue. If you look at the headlines, then Bybit, that's a cryptocurrency exchange. Bybit there launching a Sharia compliant account. That's for traders that like to trade under such accounts there. So see Bybit there launching that. Then we see FTX, their funds payback there. You know that embattled cryptocurrency exchange, FTX, they've gotten go ahead to distribute most of the funds belonging to most of the users there. So that payback is ready. Let's see if it's going to trickle down to some of the users in this part. Let's bring in Olumide Adesina now, financial market analyst. Hello, Olumide.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Olumide. So we see FTX, they have the nod now to give back most of those users the funds they had trapped on the exchange. Do you think some of the users in Nigeria will be getting their funds back?
Definitely, a substantial amount of Nigerians will definitely get it. But the issue right now is that the amount FTX is planning to raise was tokens quoted at the time of crisis, and you recall that Bitcoin at that time was $16,000. So a lot of creditors and customers are not happy about the payout plan. But looking at the dynamics in the crypto markets, you could see that Bitcoin has been unable to shrug off the Middle East conflict and the narrative that the US Fed might be hawkish in the next Fed meeting. And that's why you could see that Bitcoin has been particularly the bulls have been unable to hold the 65,000 support level categorically this month. And looking at the month to date, looking at the optics around altcoin market, I think it's worse. Ethereum has shown a year-to-date negative exposure, despite the fact that Bitcoin is still hovering around 43% year-to-date gain. And the meme coin atmosphere also seems to be dying, despite the fact the Ton blockchain has brought in interesting products. I think the outlook for the coming days is that caution should really be on the run, because Israeli retaliation, a US hawkish narrative, China's failed stimulus plan is really going to put the appetite for risk at the downward trend, despite an uptick the fact that President Trump might be a possibility based on Polymark bets showing that President Trump has an upper hand after Elon Musk made that hilarious speech a few days ago. So, Ladi, it's really showing on the markets right now, and that's why you will see that the bulls have been unable to really stay strong, despite the fact Bitcoin is above $60,000.
Right. And talking about most of these meme coins now, most have come out from Telegram. We've had the likes of Dogs, we've had the likes of Hamster Combat actually list, most of these tokens, even though some of the investors were unhappy with what they got, with especially Hamster Combat. But the tokens are in the market now. Do you think these tokens will be valuable at some point?
Yeah, so if you look at CATS, for example, CATS, I think one of the mistakes of Hamster, the token that had strong exposure around many Nigerians, was particularly it relied more on the play-to-earn mechanism rather than investors' liquidity. And you could understand that markets without a substantial amount of liquidity will definitely have a tall order in a space that has more than 50,000 listed altcoins in place. So if you look at the meme coins coming in the aftermath of Hamster, it has a mixed dynamic situation where there is influx of investors' liquidity, and also a built-up ecosystem that will bring in excitement. So, categorically, Mimi are very volatile, but we've seen Mimi coins recently bringing out huge returns. But Ladi, to be honest with you, I think the outlook for Mimi is not so good, because if you look at the amount of Mimi coins released on a daily basis, it tells you that the dilution of mainstreams like Dodge, Shiba Pepe has come to stay. So it's a short-term approach, and investors are advised to really put in funds that they can afford to lose, despite the opportunity for growth. It's a very risky asset.
Right, it's quite interesting. There are just too many altcoins in this market, and being an investor, trying to find the ones that actually make sense is definitely a tall order. So many altcoins out there. But thank you so much, Olumide Adesina, for bringing us up to speed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Ladi. Thank you so much.
All right, so that's how most of the markets we track. We're looking at intraday, and right here, the local bourse will soon be closed. That's about 2:30, but trading is still definitely on right now. Thank you so much for watching. You can watch us again on our YouTube channel. You can also continue the conversation on X. Just search for Channels Television. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams from all of us right here from Channels HQ. It's bye for now.